about the biblical stuff. And that's my main focus wants to be, is the biblical material. But at the same time, I don't know how to understand the news that we receive. Terrorism on both sides, and what the issues are, and who's doing what to whom. We know we get slanted news in this country about all of that, but let's be, as much as possible, open and reflect. One of the things we have found most helpful, and when some of us were on the trip to El Salvador, is each evening taking time to reflect. What did we experience today? What did you learn? And just how are you feeling, just to kind of check in.
What we're going to see is the best preserved and restored Roman theater in the country, and maybe the only one you're going to see on this trip. And we'll see where Herod's palace was located and talk a little bit about that. Then we will go down and take a look at the Crusader city and see the harbor, which is Herod's greatest accomplishment, was building this harbor. And finally, I'll take you and show you the aqueduct that was used to bring fresh water to the city. This is wheat growing here on our right and cotton on our left. It's just been planted. Remember, there were 5 Philistine cities: Gath, Ekron, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod. Okay, this is kind of a buffer zone between the two countries. See the Egyptian flag over there. So we are in between the borders now, in between Israel and Egypt. Would have traveled probably with a caravan or something. Jesus' family going to Egypt would have gone with a caravan of some sort, and they would have gone along this route that we're going. We should keep our cameras down, I think, until we get inside Egyptian border, Egyptian territory. Now, depending on, this time I think is pretty good for us. Our caravan is supposed to leave a convoy about 10:30, but we're gonna exit Israel over here, then we're gonna come right across the street and go into Egypt.
حبيبي يا نور العين يا ساكن خيالي عاشق بقالي سنين ولا غيرك في بالي حبيبي يا نور العين يا ساكن خيالي عاشق بقالي سنين ولا غيرك في بالي
I just got really excited when I got into Egypt because it was so different. And I've never been here, and it's pretty much the way I expected it to look, but yet we're here.
You know, when you looked at the landscape, even if you were with a big caravan, that was pretty desolate.
Well, I'm more tired tonight. I think it's from walking across the Suez Canal. I think that's what did it. But I thought... yes. But I thought it was very educational. I think I learned a little more about geography today, which I should have learned about 50 years ago.
I truly appreciate, well, the treatment that, just the treatment that we're obviously receiving from the local people, and the knowledge that Sam is, he's so young, and he has just this, wealth of knowledge about this country and the history.
One of the things that happens on a trip like this is we learn something about each other, as well as the land that we're visiting and the people that we're visiting. So I personally celebrate the fact that all of you are here. So let's get a good night's rest and be ready for some exciting adventures tomorrow, beginning with the pyramids.
about this monastery, it's 1400 years in this area, never destroyed, never blocked. It just once fired, and then the Bedouins are living here, they're helping them for that fire. What about this monastery? This monastery is located in the east part of Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, this is where Moses get up to receive the 10 Commandments. But the place where Moses started to talk to God before he get up to the mountain, this was in an area called Wadi Raha. Where is Wadi Raha? Inside the monastery, this is the place where the burning bush is. The church itself, it contains of 3 parts. The only 2 parts, or the only first part, is this the place for visit. And once we get inside, we will see lots of treasures and gifts, which is gifted to the monastery and the monks here from all over the world. This monastery here are Greek Orthodox monastery. There are 12 Greek monks living here, and this is considered as a Greek property. Inside the monastery also, there is such great things to visit. There is a library, which is considered the second in importance in the whole world after the Vatican Library. It contains 2,000 masterpieces of the books, which is handmade written by the monks, contains all kind of objects and signs.
Now, the nice thing about these monks that came here in the 4th, 5th, and 6th centuries is exactly what Isam was talking about. They started copying manuscripts. And what was found here in the late 19th century, there was a Russian man named Tischendorf who came here and found documents that we today call the Sinaiticus Codices. These are the oldest extant copies of the New Testament books ever been found anywhere in the world. This is exactly right. The second most important library for Christians outside the Vatican. There are ancient documents in here that dating way back to the Roman period. And early copies of the Gospels, not just the canonical Gospels, but the other Gospels, Thomas and Protevangelium Jacobi and these other books, well, they're all in there.
I think seeing a country like Egypt after having read about it all of our lives really gave me a much better sense and picture of what it's like. I guess I couldn't imagine a country that's that large, that's basically a 7-mile wide patch of green space down the middle of it, with desert, extensively on both sides.
I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again.
People were very gracious, and you didn't feel they were in your face or that you would make them angry by the way you behaved or anything. So I didn't feel afraid of being an American in Egypt at all.
Just can't wait to get on the road again.
I don't know, the pyramids were so much greater than I thought they would be, but I was disappointed in the Sphinx.
I can't wait to get on the road again.
I thought it was very educational. I think I learned a lot about Egypt, which I didn't know anything about to begin with.
The people that we interacted with primarily were used to Americans and tourists, and I'm sure we were only off of the bus in secure areas.
Well, what I was going to talk about that impressed me the most was the Bedouin population. And it impresses me that some of them can go off and get more education and higher education and still want to come back and carry on the traditions of their forefathers.
Is on the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again.
Oh, well, for me, I truly did not know, what an Egyptian person was, say, versus an Israeli person. And I feel that I've just really gained so much knowledge of what it's like to be from Egypt.
Altars are always at the base of mountains, always. Never on top. Well, a few have been on top, but all the ancient altars we found in the north are at the base of the mountain.
So anyway, I'd like you to, in every place that we go, and during the way, just to open your eyes, open your senses, and to try to see how you can find things. For example, you go to seek some kind of stones, then you start to have questions why these stones are here and not there, and so on. This start to make you contact to the place, and to the history, and to the reasons, and to the theory, and so on. And you will be a part of it, and not just me as a guide telling you this is okay? We are now on the steps of a mountain that today is called Mount Karkom in Hebrew, and if I translate it, it will be Mount Zafran. Okay, the flower that you make the saffron from. There's a song that somebody taught me that I'd like to teach you. Would you like to learn it? Okay. And they will come to my holy mountain and rejoice to my house of prayer, and my house will be a house of prayer for all people, and my house will be a house of place, a house of prayer for all people. And they will come to my holy mountain return and rejoice to my house of prayer, and my house will be a house of prayer for all people, and my house will be a house of prayer for all people.
On the road again, just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again.
In the desert, people are nomads. And nomad people, this is a very big subject, and that I like to, when I take people out, I like very much to deal with this subject of wandering. What is wandering? Does it do to a personality? To be a nomad or to sit? What is civilization might do? And what is the benefit and what is the problems? But someone who is wandering always is ready for something to happen, because you don't know what's going to be with you. You don't know where you find the water. You just have to use your very, very deep intuitions and feelings and beliefs. And you know that maybe you don't find water and you die. I mean, that's a part of your life, okay? And that's also a part of it. If somebody comes and do it, that's part of it, a part of the life. So to accept it, and this is also, I believe, connected to a very big belief in God, believe in something, in nature, that we are big, we are important, but we are also a part of everything that happens.
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Going places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keep turning our way, and our way. On the road again, I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again.
Now, this fortress was a very important archaeological discovery. It was excavated here by Mikhail Aharoni back in the 1960s. And we excavated both this upper city, the citadel, and a lower city that's out below it. Up here was a Solomonic fortress. This fortress was built here to protect Solomon's flank from any attack from Edom or Moab. Now being up here so high, you can see why this was such an advantageous place, to be. They could grow food out in the valley around us. If they had animals, they would graze them, like we're seeing these animals graze down here. Okay, we've got a temple here. And what we found when we excavated this temple was an altar where animals were sacrificed. Also, the most important the thing we found here was this little room over there. It's a Holy of Holies, and it's exactly to the dimensions found in the Bible. It's the only one that's ever been found anywhere on this planet. So what we have here is an altar built exactly to the dimensions prescribed in the Bible, and we have a Holy of Holies built exactly to the dimensions described in the Bible, and that makes this one of the most important findings archaeologically in the history of this land.
It was dark when we reached our hotel on the Mount of Olives in the West Bank. I knew Jerusalem was right in front of our hotel, but the dark made it impossible to see details of the great city. The next morning I awoke before dawn, grabbed my cameras, and walked outside just as the sun was coming up. This is what I saw and heard. It was a morning I'll always remember.
We are standing, now this is, just to give you the orientation here, this is Bethlehem. Charles has already mentioned that. Jerusalem is just back to the north. This is a shepherd's field owned, actually the Franciscans start over this wall. There's 3 shepherd fields, Franciscan, Greek Orthodox, and Roman Catholic. And so this is one of the traditional spots where the angels were to come to the shepherds and say, you know, a new thing has happened in Bethlehem, go and see, and that type thing. This is an olive tree. You notice how the limbs are broken off? Now we're talking about sheep here. The shepherds, when they come up, they'll break the limbs off of these olive trees and feed the branches to the sheep. Now I'm not sure what it's supposed to do, but it has some type of invigorating or healing powers that the sheep need, and so they'll come and they'll break these little twigs off. Now we're looking at a sheepfold, this thing behind me. And this is just a wonderful teaching spot as far as the, what is it, John, I've forgotten the verse now, John 21 or, no, John, when it talks about, Jesus is talking about, I am the good shepherd. I can't remember the exact chapter, but wonderful illustration here. Now, really another wonderful illustration is, you know, I am the gate. Only the thieves and robbers try to go over the wall and through the thistles and things. But the one who comes through me can come in and find, or go out and find pasture and all that type thing. And so the shepherd literally becomes the gate. Once all the sheep are inside this fold here, he will sit down like a squat, kind of like a Yoda thing. I can't really do it. My legs aren't limber enough. But he literally becomes the gate and sleeps here all night long. And so it's really a wonderful, the way the illustration is you know, Jesus using this very simple thing. You know, shepherding was a very, considered not really a nice profession. In fact, some even thought that they couldn't be trusted. You couldn't trust shepherds. They were just a, you know, renegade lot, and so you just didn't need to be around them. But just a very simple thing, Jesus was able to use that illustration to get the point across. This is the Herodian, probably built between 25 and 13 BC. You know, Herod had 3 periods of ruled from about 37 to 4. He died in 4, came to power in 37, but 37 to 25 he was involved with a lot of political strife, and so was consolidating power. By 25 he had wiped out all the rebellions that were going on, and he started this massive building campaign, which the Herodian was part of. But really a marvelous feat of engineering, the way they built up this thing. This, you know, they built up the hill to about this level. You see down in the bottom, where this open courtyard would have been. Built it up to there, and then started up with these towers. Now these towers would have gone up another 2 or 3 or 4 stories. So we're talking a huge palace in here, and then they built up the dirt up against the wall. The stairway that you saw when we were coming up, it starts here and goes straight down the hill. It's just a straight stairway. And Herod was a big fella, probably pushing 300 pounds or so, maybe. And so he would have been carried. Can you imagine the slaves carrying this guy up the side of this? But I think the really important spot about this is what Charles has already said. The Mark 11 thing is that, you know, we're not talking about, you know, telekinesis and supernatural type stuff, but Jesus was pointing over there after the triumphal entry from Bethphage. He's done the fig tree thing and, you know, all that. Comes back and they say, why did it happen? And he simply just is standing there and points over there. You can move mountains. And I don't think only until you come to this land and see that people can move a mountain. It's not by that they willfully minded it or something. I don't know how you'd say it, but just simply picked up a bucket and a shovel and started digging. And that's kind of like I see the whole faith process. It's a lifelong, day after day. You just got to get up in the morning, decide to pick up that shovel and bucket and move your mountains. But that everyone can do it. Okay, this is the Church of the Nativity, built by Queen Helena Constantine's mother. This is the only church that was built by Helena that was not destroyed by the Persians. This door here, the Crusaders placed it here to keep horses from riding into the church. We're going to walk into the Greek Orthodox Church, look around at the mosaics. You can look down through the floor and see some mosaics from the original church, built by Helena. Go on through, and on to the right of the church, you'll go down into the grotto where Christ was supposedly born, supposedly the cave and all that. Go down through there. You'll come back out, and I'll be standing on where we come out and direct you through this door, and we'll come out. This is just a little church to mark the spot where Jesus got on the donkey. And where he got on the donkey. And the real point of coming here is that you can go in and see the stone exactly where Jesus got up on the donkey. It's not true. Y'all got to lighten up with me, folks. This is not.
Something has to be true.
You'll walk in there and you'll see this rock, and the rock's about this high, and this donkey must have been 6 feet tall because it's just a huge rock. They had to get up on top of this thing. But we've set it up now that Jesus gets on the donkey. You know why he gets on it here and crosses Mount of Olives. But why was it such a big deal? You know, everybody starts picking up palm trees. Hosanna, Hosanna, and all this stuff. Hosanna means save now. Jesus wasn't the only Messiah in his time. There had been many Messiahs before him, and there were many that came after him. The idea that he did all this stuff, it was a big political statement. And so when Jesus did all these political statements, getting on a donkey, crossing from Bethphage over the Mount of Olives, going to the temple, he was making huge political claims about himself, being the Messiah. The Messiah in Jesus' time was not God. It was a military figure. And so the Romans, when Jesus crossed the hill, doing what he did, and everybody picking up palm branches, he had already sealed his fate. He wasn't crucified because he was a religious heretic and all that kind of stuff. He was crucified because of sedition against Rome. All right, we are standing in a small cave that was the traditional spot in the apocryphal Acts of John. It says that Jesus taught his disciples secretly in a cave on the Mount of Olives. Now this is the traditional spot for that cave you're looking at. And so there was a church that was built here by Helena. I think she came here and built a chapel. It wasn't a very large structure. That was later destroyed, and then the Crusaders came, and the tradition seems to have been forgotten. As far as teaching the disciples in a cave, the tradition was completely forgotten, but when the Crusaders came, they found a tablet here in Greek and Hebrew with the Lord's Prayer on it. Hence the name Pater Noster. All the plaques, when you go outside, you can see there's languages, and it's all the Lord's Prayer in about 62 languages around the courtyard. And it's a beautiful church, and again, a modern church. Some of this is Crusader construction down here, but this is a modern church up there. And so we don't. Again, this is one of those iffy places. We could say this is the exact spot, blah blah blah, but we just simply don't know. Okay, this is part of the Garden of Gethsemane. Remember, the Garden of Gethsemane would have covered most of this hillside. Gethsemane means olive press, and so we found several olive presses in the area. This would have been an agricultural garden, not a garden for beauty, just for the olives. You're raising a product here for profit. Now the church, you can look at the trees, and like I say, some say they date all the way back to the time of Christ. Probably not, but some are at least 1,000 years old. These are very, very, very old olive trees. The reason I say they probably don't date to the time of Christ is because Roman military procedure, standard Roman military procedure says that when you defeat a country, you burn everything around it, trees, everything, and so they would have come through here and chopped it all down. Now we'll go and walk around to the Basilica of the Agony, or also known as the Church of All Nations. It's Basilica of the Agony because the rock inside here is supposedly where Jesus came and prayed before his arrest. And so you'll see mosaic. I know you're laughing at me. And well, it's a nice rock, and it's got nice mosaics. It could have been, but that's why it's called Basilica of the Agony. You know, he prayed, and I think sweat drops of blood came from his forehead, and so that's the idea. So walk around and go in the church, and you'll come back out this way, over here. The Dome of the Rock is not a mosque, it's a shrine, and so it's technically not, a place of worship. Standing in what was the pavement of at least the Hadrian Antonia Fortress, could have been the original pavement from the Antonia Fortress from the 1st century. The Holy Sepulchre, sitting over the spot where the tomb we think was. This whole area would have been tombs around in here somewhere. Usually they used quarries after they were finished with the quarry. They made tombs out of them. This is St. Mark's Syrian Orthodox Church, one of the two sites that I know of for the upper room. And this sits over a house, first century house, supposedly the house of St. Mark.
You never know when you start on an adventure like this. I don't believe it'd be fair to even compare us to an adventure of the Israelites when they left Egypt. But when we left Dallas and met in New York and we came to this place, none of us quite knew what to expect. So it's an act of faith and it's a journey of faith, and I think our faith has been rewarded, and I think that our faith has been strengthened by this experience. It's amazing that the way God's Spirit works in us, often in small increments. Experiences like this that over a period of time plant seeds that grow and become clearer for us as we work through these mysteries and deal with some of the issues that we face in our lives. So, sharing these experiences with one another is a real gift, I think. I think there are some days on this trip that none of us will ever forget, and we will remember not only what we experienced, but the people that we experienced it with. So we're all kind of a part of one another, if we weren't before. I think that what we do now in this time, in this trip, and as we go home, is something that is an act of faith, and I think that that's finally what our spiritual journeys are about.
And they will come to my holy mountain and rejoice to my house of prayer, and my house will be a house of prayer for all people, and my house will be a house of prayer for all people.